Hello, and welcome back to the Greybeards podcast, where three old guys sit around a park bench or our chairs and talk about things going on around the world that are affecting you and will affect you. With me is Hall of Fame investigative journalist and longtime friend Bob Sands. And also, Ken Campbell, longtime friend, national security expert, long distinguished career in military intelligence and naval special operations. And I am Mike Betcher, who spent a lot of time, more than 4 decades, as a foreign correspondent for three networks: CNN, NBC, and ABC News. So, welcome, guys. We took a bit of a hiatus, but how y'all doing?
Yeah, everything's good. Yeah, go ahead, Bobby. Catch him up.
Well, I'm
Guys,
I'm here
settle
at
down.
University of Oklahoma, where today is graduation day. So I'm kind of dressed up here a little bit because I got to go down and see my graduates and from my classes and their parents. And they always have a lot of questions. So anyway, should be fun. It's always a great time of year, graduation day here at OU. And thank God now I can devote full time to the podcast right now.
Yes.
Booyah.
And where you been? I mean, Ken, you were out traveling. Where'd you go?
Yeah, so no, I'm still down in Florida. I came down to keynote a conference for just a most excellent company, Delta Financial. So they do some really interesting things with investment and buying and then leasing capital equipment. They're into rail, they're into, heavy equipment, all kinds of things. And they asked me to come down and, of course, you expect that they'd want war stories and we told some war stories, but my challenge was to figure out how I take everything that I've done through three different careers with, like the spec ops and the intel and then my ventures in the private sector with geospatial and space and all that other stuff and distill it into something that's meaningful. And man, you talk about a challenge there, but I think we nailed it. And then it's my 69th birthday this weekend, so I'm hanging out with my brother.
Hey, yeah, no, I had my 72nd this week. You're 69, young guy. We won't ask Bob how old he is.
You don't want to know. Too old.
So China, big trip by the president. What did you guys think?
Well, we don't have any real details yet. He made big deals. They're going to buy a bunch of airplanes. They're going to buy a bunch of soybeans. We don't have any numbers. We don't have any specifics. I was kind of stunned that one of the big things was they agreed the Strait of Hormuz should be open. I mean, really? Who thinks
Yeah, how
they
about that?
guys? I mean, really?
How about that? I got it. I got it in about 3 sentences or less.
Hey,
Okay.
Ken, we need to center you up a little bit. We only see half of your face.
There
There
you are.
you go. There you go. Yeah,
Okay.
you look every bit of 69.
I'm having to, struggle with this iPad. Okay. So am I there?
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
there. You're
yeah,
pretty
yeah, you're
close.
there.
Okay.
We got
All right.
we got the whole face now.
Well, we got, a lot of things obviously to talk about, a lot of detail going to the summit, but I'm going to sum it up in basically, 3 sentences.
Okay.
Trump got the headlines, Xi got the picture, and nobody got the Straits of Hormuz.
Yeah. It's not like the Chinese are going to be motivated to help us out in the Strait of Hormuz. Uh,
Yeah, well, it looks like what happened. There's some trade things that seem to work out. Looks like China agreed to buy 200 more Boeing commercial jets, and there's talk about upwards of 750. And uh, there was some discussion on China, amping up its purchase of the soybean and corn and whatnot. And so there was some of that going on, and then there was some talk about artificial intelligence and mutual concerns over making sure there's certain guardrails, which, but yeah, nothing about leaning on Iran to give Trump what he wanted. Of course, we've still got the blockade going on, and that's causing China and those teapot refineries. Um, that's causing them quite a bit of economic pain. So you know, but I think it's like everything that's complex here is that a 2-day meeting isn't going to solve the problems. It set conditions for certainly additional conversations. So
I heard
I think,
an interesting statistic that, all of that oil from Iran that goes to China, China is its big customer, but in the Chinese um, economy as a whole, uh, oil from Iran only accounts for well, it's less than 10%. I think it's closer to 6% of their energy requirements. And the rest of it is, green energy, wind, solar, and other forms of energy. But that so there, it's not like their backs are up against the wall on the Straits of Hormuz, um, because they need that oil, and that's a decent percentage. And let's say, and I'll have to come back at you with the exact statistic, but it's not a huge chunk of their oil requirement, that petroleum coming from Iran. So they've got time. I mean, their economy is shaky, uh, and you never know when the population starts to get restless because of a stagnating or an performing economy that China does have right now. But I you know I think that the summit produced what it produced was not a whole lot because no one wants to let Donald Trump off the hook. I don't know.
They
Any
don't.
thoughts?
Well, there's no advantage to letting him off the hook, really. I mean, he's a lame duck president already. So his power is already being diminished substantially. And it's really in China's advantage because China is now seen as the nice guy. I mean, around the world, they're
Yeah.
being nice to lots of people. They've supplanted our presence because we pulled back through all of the cuts that have been made to U.S. aid and other things. Chinese are finding all kinds of nice ways to make friends. So all of a sudden, we don't look so good, and they look a lot better. There's several articles I've read about that. I'm sure Ken's familiar with that phenomenon.
yeah, one of the things I will say is that Mike, you're spot on. Uh, Certainly, it's the 10% of whatever that China gets through its oil dealings with Iran is important, but really it's more important to Iran because they're buying 80% of Iranian production, and
Yeah.
that's where the leverage comes in. Um, and so yeah, it's interesting, and going into this parlay, um, I really think China had an upper hand, and Xi plays three-dimensional chess, and the president, unfortunately, I don't think he came in there with a tremendously good hand, and it showed on coming out of the summit.
I mean, bottom line is at least they met, and that's a good thing. It's because uh, Taiwan and China's next moves on Taiwan are something that concerns me and it concerns a lot of people, especially in Congress. So that bears watching. what
Yeah,
we're doing
absolutely,
now.
Mike. And Xi, he cast something a little more than uh, it wasn't a subtle hint. Taiwan, be careful because we could both go head to head. With regard to Taiwan and what happens. With the U.S.'s position, and so that was interesting. Xi felt, or from a Chinese perspective, they're peer to peer now. You know, they're not a second rate country. Uh, their certainly position going into this was that they are equals and should be treated as such and respected. And I was reading a number of articles about Chinese political views, government views towards the United States, and they see us as a declining power. And they see their role as filling in that gap and taking advantage of it.
Ken, what about these persistent reports that there's smuggling going on out of China, weaponry going to Iran? There was another article I found just this week that talks about Chinese firms plotting secret arms sales to Iran, and that came from U.S. officials. Yeah, is there anything to this?
Well, I'd have to look deeper into it. I didn't necessarily, go down that rabbit hole for this podcast, but I will tell you historically that that kind of activity is normal. You know, I mean, in terms of China supporting uh, its uh, supporting countries that it has a vested interest in. Whether it's weaponry or equipment, or if you go back and look at the Belt and Road Initiative and how China has penetrated into Africa and Latin America and these places. So it certainly would not surprise me in the least if China was providing some level of military hardware support and technology.
Yeah, but it won't have government fingerprints on it, Bob. It'll be run
Yeah,
through private companies, and
Yeah.
these are component parts and all sorts of things needed for missile defense and offensive missiles, ballistic missiles,
yeah. In
various
fact,
things.
they make a shoulder-launched uh, anti-aircraft missile that's literally a design based on Chinese weapons. And that was something that was some technology and design information that was passed years ago.
What about this secret report from the CIA that Iran has managed to reconstitute most of its missile sites, its launch systems, especially around the Strait of Hormuz? They've got apparently 90% capacity now. It's pretty stunning because we've been told repeatedly that we've wiped out their military. And from this report that the White House is dismissing, that did come from the CIA, their own, spy agency, that said, no, guys, they've reconstituted much of what they've got.
Well, you got to remember, he likes to control the narrative, and
Yes.
certainly he is not going to be stepping back from um, his position. And it drives me nuts too, because it's not just this. He does it with everything. He does it to the news media, calls them all fake news if they're not reporting good news about him. And so in this case, what came out of the CIA report is obviously not good news. And so uh, he's going to spin a different story. And so is the Secretary of Defense. And meanwhile, we got the adults in the room who are your your military leaders, and they know damn well what's going on because they're the ones that have to go up against it. So it's just, but it drives me freaking batshit, to listen to the spin, you know.
It's okay, Ken. I'm gonna have to be director here. Center up. There you go. There you
Yeah.
go. About right there.
Sorry, it's the iPad's fault. If I look this way,
But
I can't look at you guys. It's like
but going just getting back to the China thing and China's opinion that we're a declining power. I mean, maybe we are, maybe we aren't. It feels like it, but China has, again, going back to the economy, you know, the Chinese, in my experience and working there, um, that we don't know deep down what the Chinese people are thinking until they go into the streets and cities like they were doing a while back and protesting, and then those are brutally put down. But there's some dissatisfaction about economic opportunity in that country and the stagnating economy. And what I found, and we'll do story time here for a second because before Tiananmen Square, I was in Beijing and I was working for NBC News, and they said there are reports of even bigger demonstrations in Shanghai. So I got on a plane with my crew, went to Shanghai, and sure enough, we landed there. And there were, and this is not hyperbole, there were 2 to 3 million people in the streets. I mean, it was the biggest demonstration I ever saw. And of course, we were the only gringos there. There were no other Western media or anything else. And the streets were full, and we're moving with the protesters and we're shooting all of this. And suddenly, I see the crowd kind of part like it's passing a message up to us. And they were passing a message up saying, the police are coming for you. Get out of here. And so a couple of younger Chinese, I think were students, grabbed us and took us down an alleyway. And I remember going up a set of stairs as we were trying to evade the Chinese police. And we go into this office, and and it was a Chinese accounting office because there were rows and rows of abacuses. They were still using abacuses back then. And they put us in a closet, and they could have given us away because the police were going door to door looking for us. We heard them come in from our hiding place. I assume because I don't speak Mandarin that they were saying, where are the Americans? No one gave us up. No one gave us up. And that told me, eventually we were arrested, and uh, my visa was revoked and we were kicked out of the country. Um, but that one episode to this day instructs what I think about the Chinese people, because I don't think we know where their head is really at. So if China thinks they're a monolith, and they need the boogeyman, where are the boogeymen? The Americans. But if they think, they're an all-powerful monolith that are going to challenge American power throughout the world, they still got a lot of problems back home to correct, and their people are not happy. I do not believe.
yeah. Well, meanwhile, their government, their central government, continue to plan for um, those things that they have said as objectives for the country, and that includes reassimilating Taiwan. And I think we're getting to a point. And let me just read you some comments
Yeah,
that were provided to me during a discussion I had with you know two individuals that let's just say work in the intelligence community at very, very high level, and what they said about China. Okay, if you might just give me a minute here. We're planning for a war that China believes it will never have to fight, and losing the war that China is fighting now. They're sticking with their assassin's mace strategy that applies their advantages against our weaknesses. It's right out of Sun Tzu, right? They're not going to get into the ring with Mike Tyson. They know our weaknesses and are developing their weapons in order of battle to exploit our continued preparation to fight the last war. For them, it's not about fighting against our exquisite systems. They're going to kick us in the nuts. The other comment that was made with regard to the summit. Well, let me just read one last comment that was made about going head to head with them. We're not even going to get to the fight. Our transportation, telecom, energy, and power infrastructure is compromised. We depend on a handful of rail, road, fuel, and port choke points that China has infiltrated. Exactly. They'll take out our satellites and leave us deaf, dumb, and blind. And then his final comment, one of the guys' final comment about the summit. Here's my 2 cents, Ken. Trump embarrasses us, hands Xi gargantuan propaganda victory in yet another pointless, counterproductive summit. Meetings of world leaders are supposed to produce tangible results. Under Trump, they produce noise and confusion and enhance the global reputation of tyrants. Good job.
Interesting.
I thought that was, and these are, like I said, these are, folks that were in some pretty heady positions, senior positions. Now obviously not active on the government side, but nevertheless Chinese experts.
Well, hey, at least I'll give them credit. At least they had the meeting. It gives some stability, but it gave no solutions or a path forward out of Iran on tariffs, on Taiwan, or anything. I mean, I think everything is still muddled and muddied, and we don't know.
Right.
That is showing up too in people's attitudes about the economy here and who they're blaming for it. And it's not a pretty picture. I'm sure you guys have seen what's happened. Here's the latest.
Yeah, bring that up, Bobby. You've been talking
Here's the
about
latest crude oil futures price. Let me get this in here so I can share it. Here we go. And get to the window, and there it is. Share. Here's the current price. WTI at 105, Brent crude at 109. I put gas in my vehicle today, cost me $89, and the only reason it was $89 is because I use flex fuel. I have a vehicle that runs on it. It's only costing me $3 a gallon. The very next pump, it's multiple pumps. The very next one to it was over $4. So I can't imagine what somebody is doing, having to fill up a 30-gallon gas tank at over $4 a gallon. Current gas prices around the world, around the country, I should say. This is.
Everything's up over $4, isn't it,
Yeah.
Bobby?
Current average is $5 for mid-grade, $4.50 for regular gasoline. Yesterday it's gone down a penny since yesterday. A week ago it was 2 pennies higher on average. But I put Virginia up here on purpose just for you, Ken. $4.32.
I know what it's costing me.
Yeah, it's not pleasant. And
No, not at all. Not at all.
Here's the latest poll numbers for the president on all of this. Let me get it. Here we go. And these are several of the more popular ones. The Rasmussen poll, which usually shows Trump doing very well, he's upside down there. RMG's research shows him upside down. On job approval, he's way upside down. Why is it not showing the whole thing here? Come on. There we go. Disapproval ratings are running 60 to 40, basically, is what's showing up. And the CNN poll that just came out is even more dramatic. I'm sure you've seen that, Ken. And Mike, it's like 70-30. 77% of America does not like what's going on right now. So there's a lot of nervousness in the GOP coming up on those midterms, just 6 months away now.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah,
some
no
real
doubt.
there's some real questions too. Okay, with those low poll numbers, what's next? What are they going to do? Well, there's a status quo that's not working. We have all this military capacity in the Gulf area now, but what are they going to do with that? Something something's up with Somalia though, maybe, because I know Russia has put out warnings to its diplomats and Russian nationals in Somalia. It's like a State Department warning to its diplomats it gives when something's about to happen in a country they're based in, to either leave or find a safe place, something like that. Uh, it it I This is purely speculation, but the Somali pirates have been active. I think they've taken 3 tankers, and, you know, although I would not be a fan of us going back into Somalia after all those decades, after the Black Hawk Down thing, but going after those Somali pirates and using, American force there, I I don't I don't know if they try boots on the ground doing that or not, but, um, I'm
Yeah, I
sure that.
gotta I gotta tell you, Mike, I disagree slightly, and only because there's more information percolating out.
Okay, let me
I
know.
think the next I think the next big push using our military and certainly diplomacy is Cuba.
Well, yeah, no, for sure,
Yeah, I mean
but
the
I'm
CIA, the head of the CIA, was reportedly in Cuba talking with the leadership there, and I think he was communicating this is what you need to do if you want to avoid A, B, C, D, and F. But um, yeah, and I mean Somalia, yeah, I don't discount that. We can't have uh, you know, a major ramp up of Somali pirates,
Well,
taking advantage of
we
the
apparently do.
situation. Yeah,
Yeah, we do. There's a report out I just saw today. Ever since you can't get through the straits, so everybody's being diverted around to Africa. And the
right.
result is Somali piracy, quote, is re-emerging along key Indian Ocean
Yeah,
shipping lanes.
yeah,
So, yeah, they're taking advantage of the situation. Absolutely. Uh,
yeah.
not doing anything about that right now. I don't know that we ever will.
Well, there's some capacity issues there too, you know. Um, but
well, I mean, yeah, Cuba would be an easy mark, and we've talked about this before. This is right out of Ronald Reagan's playbook after the Marine barracks bombing, and then they were looking for a victory, and we did Grenada, the Grenadian invasion, which I covered. That war, that was a long one. It lasted, I don't know, about 6 to 8 hours.
mhm.
What that was a total mismatch, and there were Cubans on that island, one of which stole my laundry day after day after day. It was hiding in the hills behind where I was staying there.
So you were naked then, naked
Well, and I
broadcast.
kept losing underwear. I had to wear dirty underwear, a lot,
Oh God,
because I mean, the Cubans are interesting folks. They're very clean. Yeah, and by God, this Cuban deserter from the Cuban army that, or forces that were there,
he
he
was
was he
setting
was gonna
himself
have
up.
clean underwear every day, and he was wearing my underwear. The Marines, I came back once from covering the story, and the Marines were running up the hill chasing him. I said, "Is that the Cuban?" They go, "Yeah, yeah," but they never got him, so I never got my underwear or socks back. It's underwear
He's
and
probably
socks and T-shirt.
he's probably still wearing them, Mike.
They're probably still wearing all this stuff. I don't know, but
Yeah, he opened a
that's re
dry cleaner in Grenada.
yeah.
He's still there.
But that's I can see that happening, but I don't see how it helps to, to wanna put Raul Castro in cuffs and, put him on trial, I just that's not gonna help that. I Look, the Cubans are not stupid. They'll wanna find a way to make this work where they, maintain some power, but this particular ship, I think that's Marco Rubio captaining this ship, And, the Cuban exile community, they never forgot. They never forgot, their homes and
Mm-hmm.
their businesses, and during the Cuban Revolution being nationalized by the Cubans, by the communist Cuban government and Fidel Castro. But, I actually, two of my students had a Pulitzer Center grant to do a story on the Cuban softball team, which is trying to get to the Olympics. And once and this softball world championships and everything else, and they were going to do a sports documentary, but State Department has these warnings out. University of Oklahoma won't let us send them to Cuba because insurance doesn't cover them there. So, they're obviously out there in the ether. There's a lot of concern about what may happen there. Uh, but I will say this: if it's a military operation, I don't that the U.S. does. I don't see the Cubans laying down their arms. I see the Cubans fighting, actually. And I think it can be done, but it can be done in a way with using soft power rather than hard power, and not putting the Cubans with their backs against the wall, but working with them kind of a la Venezuela to, change things around there.
Well, Mike, they're out of fuel. They're literally out of
No, they have
fuel. I
none.
mean, you talk
Yeah.
about the Swedes, right?
Yeah, no. So you're right. I think we're all right on this. I mean, I think that, which is very Trumpian, you know, keep your eye off the ball onto this over here that's going on, and this over here that's
Oh,
going on.
what about those Epstein files, brothers?
Yeah. But, in terms of our forces already in the Persian Gulf region, I think if we were going to use land forces, ground forces, that would have been done by now. And I don't think that is going to happen. And I don't think the American people have the appetite for that. I don't think the Trump administration does.
Well, the Saudis are already, parlaying, cutting their own deal with them right now. I think the article came out yesterday that talked about Saudi Arabia uh, negotiating what do they call it? Man, it was right on the tip of my tongue. Non-aggression pact or non-aggression agreement of some sort. I mean, and we
Yeah,
talk about
but the
this too. It's
UAE's
hurting
not
all the
going.
GCC.
The Emiratis aren't going for that. They're
No,
not
they
going
aren't.
for
But
it. They're hardcore.
right,
They want to. Yeah, they're they're
just
they're
up.
being very hawkish.
Yeah.
So, well, okay, guys, it was good having you all back. The band's back. Well, Ken's still in Florida. God knows, probably out there fishing or eating stone crabs, stuff like that.
It was good, man. Had crab top snapper last night for dinner. Grill. Oh,
Sounds good. Hey, I got one more
Well,
thing to show you guys
yeah,
real quick.
yeah,
Back in 2022, when gas prices were really, really high back then because of all the stuff that was going on, the GOP put out little stickers of Joe Biden and it said, I did that, and put them on gas pumps. Well, guess what's going around now?
no.
yeah,
Here it is. There you go.
Oh,
yeah.
that's special.
I haven't seen one yet, but
I haven't
I
seen
know
That's
one
they're
yet.
out
special.
there.
They're out there. So anyway, there you go.
Okay, well, that's a good funny note to leave us on. So, hey, what comes around goes around in politics.
Gotta
Well,
have thick skin.
okay, well, we'll check in on the state of the world here shortly, and it was great seeing you all, having the
Good
band back
seeing you.
together. Talk
All right.
soon. Okay,
Good to see you guys.
bye.
All right. Bye.
Okay, I'm just trying to.
We're still
I,
recording.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to get it. Oh, here it is. Sorry.